She's gonna do a superhero landing. Wait for it. Woo! Superhero landing. Yeah, that's really hard on your knees.
Hello, Chipmunk and Chipette fans. My name is Grandy Tamias, and welcome back to another installment of Alvin and the Chipmunks Elaborations. Today's topic will be, should there be more action in the franchise? So I'm pretty sure we all know from the lyrics of the Chipmunks' 80s theme song that they'll bring us action and satisfaction. But I, for one, haven't noticed a lot of action, and because of that, I don't feel satisfied. Granted, this alone would never mean that the series, or the whole franchise for that matter, advertises itself as being in the action genre, though given the kinds of adventures and conflicts the Chipmunks and Chipettes often find themselves in, it seems like some potential is being held back. To be clear, I'm not necessarily saying that I want Alvin and the Chipmunks to become an action franchise like the sea of others we have in mainstream pop culture today. After all, in a previous video, I did say that I don't want this franchise to be turned into something that it's not. But as with other topics I've discussed, I think the franchise could, to an extent, benefit from a change in this regard, or at least from elements of it. Of course, being that these characters are meant to appeal to children, one of the big rationales some people may have for why they shouldn't get involved with more action is that they would become associated with violence. I brought up this same issue a few years ago when I talked about the video games in this franchise, and why the few games we got were only Guitar Hero rhythm-style games instead of action platformers. But not only has the franchise itself gone against its non-violent storytelling in some instances, there are tons of examples of characters in big franchises who appeal to children, yet have done some kinda horrific things. The Chipmunks and Chipettes haven't, that we know of, but does anyone bat an eye when Baby Yoda kills someone? I don't know, I've never actually seen The Mandalorian, but I'm pretty sure he does. Really, the only time I can recall that someone dies in this franchise is Cookie Chomper III, and that was off-screen. And I should probably move on, because bringing him up as a can of worms I should probably deal with another day. Plus, action doesn't have to be all fighting. It could include chase scenes, escapes, or daring rescues. The live-action movies had some great examples of these, such as the Mango Chase in Shipwrecked. They make great use of objects in their environment to try and get ahead of each other, and even though we know they aren't going to die, the scene is very engaging, and a lot of us may have been rooting for one of these characters to win. Or for daring rescues, we have moments like Alvin saving the Chipettes in the Squeakquel, and saving Jeanette from Zoe in Shipwrecked. It should be noted, though, that both of these moments have a threat of death, briefly at first in the former case, and from the volcano in the latter case. But even without that aspect, these scenes perfectly encapsulate the kind of action that's possible in this franchise, while not being too dark for kids. And in my opinion, they do a good job of getting the viewer to feel for the protagonists, and that the danger is real. That said, those chase scenes and rescues are not the most extreme action sequences in these movies. There were actual physical fights, too. There was that scene in the first movie where the Chipmunks fought the security guards after crashing the concert, and again, the Chipmunks used their environment to their advantage. There was Alvin fighting the honey meerkat in Shipwrecked, as well as Simone fighting a freshwater tuna? Gee, what was it with Shipwrecked and inaccurate animals? And in Road Trip, we had perhaps the best of all of these, Alvin's bar fight with Suggs, which not only has a moment where Alvin pelts Suggs in the face with toothpicks, ouch, but the scene itself takes place in an establishment that serves alcohol. Okay, if kids can handle this, then my point in this video is far stronger than I was making it out to be, and that's not even to mention Theodore getting hit by a car in this movie. So it's clear that the franchise isn't a stranger to having its characters be physically harmed or causing physical harm to others. But maybe the movies just play by a different set of rules. The cartoons, on the other hand, are far more tame in comparison. There's not a lot to say about the Alvin show in this regard, much like with a lot of my elaborations apparently, which is kind of to be expected given other cartoons around this time, the fact that the action genre wasn't as big back then, and the more humor-centric tone and writing. Action scenes in the 80s series were usually limited to the movie parody episodes, but there were a few outliers, such as the 1985 special, A Chipmunk Reunion, where the Chipmunks are chased by a boar that tries to kill them, and near the end, where Vinny tricks the boar into falling off a cliff. Wow, she is one brave mother. Notably, the Chipmunk Adventure had scenes such as the shark attack with the Chipettes in Bermuda, as well as the chase scene at the airport. The latter scene also leads into a car chase, and the song Diamond Dolls in both parts makes it a real thrill to watch. Skipping ahead to the Universal films, Meet Frankenstein and Meet the Wolfman obviously had bigger horror elements than anything that had come before in this franchise, and that can overlap with action as well. While Frankie was pretty aggressive, I wouldn't necessarily call any of his sequences action sequences. Meet the Wolfman, in my opinion, has something a little more along the lines of an action sequence when Theodore and Mr. Talbot in their werewolf forms briefly fight each other. And then there's the 2015 series, which has a couple of episodes with moments of action. I won't cover all of them, but I'll cover the ones that I personally enjoyed and that I think support the points I've been making so far. As I discussed in my Eleanor video, the 2015 series version of the character is something of a powerhouse, the muscle of the cast. There was the fight with the robot baby in the episode Baby Mama Drama, which was really just her getting it off of Jeezy's head. And I get why they didn't go any further with that. There's no way that this kids show could get away with showing one of the core characters attacking something that looks very much like a human infant. There have been a couple times where Theodore has gone complete savage mode and attacked humans, such as in Clowning Around and Switcheroo. Honestly, this could lead me off topic into issues regarding Theodore's characterization, so I'll save that for another time. There was that moment I showed at the start of the video where Brittany does the superhero landing in the episode Simsky, or Simsky, or however it's pronounced. And in the episode Lights, Camera, Uh-Oh, Brittany dreams of being a secret agent in a homemade movie. Actually, dream sequences are a common source of action sequences in this show, but regardless, they always use paintball or water guns, never actual firearms, because, again, kids show. As far as escapes and rescues go, again, in previous videos, I discussed the ending of Treasure Hunt and Eleanor rescuing Dave in Girls' Night Out. There are several episodes where, like the movie versions, the Chipmunks and Chipettes nimbly climb, swing, and jump off of things, which I always love seeing. And if we're talking about chase scenes, School Alone has a really good one between Alvin and Brittany. At one point, Alvin hides on the ceiling and they reenact that moment from the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. Again, the music in the scene goes a long way in accentuating the action. Another really good example of music and action going together, and one of my favorite moments in the whole series, is the Play with Danger sequence in Pizza Dash. Everything about this sequence is just chef's kiss. And it is an absolute travesty that we have never gotten this song on an album. This is also a good point to return to something I said in my Villains video, where I brought up this same moment. Having more sequences that are actual fights would obviously require opposing combatants. They could resort to having the Chipmunks and Chipettes fight robots, something Eleanor even questions in the episode Supergirls, since they're not alive, so they don't have to deal with moral questions and the consequences of causing harm to them. Unless they're sentient or something along the lines of Robot Baby. But honestly, that might get repetitive, and it doesn't feel as personal and impactful as fighting someone who actually has the opposing ideology. Then again, the words personal, impactful, and ideology probably weren't thought about during the writing process of this series. And while the idea of the Chipmunks and/or Chipettes working together to fight a human much larger than them sounds cool, I think that they should also have enemies that are more in their weight class, if you know what I mean. Yes, we've reached that part of the video, more chipmunks. We've seen the Seville brothers fight each other, like the dumpster wrestling scene in the Squeakquel. Obviously, no one gets hurt, and the actual fight is mostly off-screen, but I think it would also be interesting to see them fight another member of their species who isn't related to them or the Chipettes. And with chipmunks being as sparse as they are, that might give the main characters more hesitation to fight them, which would make the conflict more compelling in my opinion. But whether they are sparse or abundant, chipmunks fighting other chipmunks would make action sequences, or at least fights specifically, more consistent in how they're depicted in choreography and camera angles. But like I said, this franchise appeals to children, and I think it's very unlikely that the creators would want to intensify the violence in the cartoons, even up to the level that it was in the movies. Kids are just really impressionable, and parents certainly would not want their child learning violent behaviors from Alvin or any of the other chipmunks, characters who have had a reliable track record of being friendly for decades. Then again, I grew up on the live-action Chipmunks like a lot of you guys did, and I turned out fine, other than my burning desire to punch most of the CGI humans. However, I could see them leaning more into making the chase scenes more dynamic, or escapes and rescues that involve some natural force like a big wind or thunderstorm. Overall, while action sequences and violence aren't needed to tell a good Alvin and the Chipmunks story, I think the franchise has proven that they can fit in and be really entertaining, even when the stakes are low. Of course, we all love watching a good climactic fight, but as long as they can be justified and the characters can maintain their kid-friendly integrity, I think there is potential. Feel free to let me know in the comments, do you think the franchise should have more action sequences? How intense should they be? And what are your favorite action sequences in the franchise? Don't forget, you're also welcome to leave suggestions for future elaboration topics in this series. And if you want to follow me on social media, I have a Discord server and Twitter linked in the description. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed, have a nice day, and thank you for your time.